on the NewsChannel 5 network. This is Open Line.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Open Line. I'm looking forward to tonight because we're basically just going to have a fascinating conversation. We are talking with, well, let me introduce Robert Sherrill. Mr. Sherrill, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm going to go through some of the stuff here. You were named Nashville's most admired CEO by the Nashville Business Journal, right?
Yes, sir.
You spent time in federal prison. You were pardoned by the governor. You have written a best-selling book, and you are also president of Impact Youth Outreach, a nonprofit that combats youth crime.
Yes, sir.
So there's a lot to cover there.
That's a lot.
And I'm fascinated by all of that, and I'm glad you're here.
Yes, sir.
Let's start with, all right, the CEO and starting your own company, but even before that, so you spent time in federal prison. Where are you from? Are you from here in Nashville?
37208, North Nashville.
North Nashville, 37208. And kind of what happened? So as a kid, what was going on?
So I was a normal kid, grew up, both parents in the household. My real dad wasn't around, but my stepdad was there, and I thought he was my real dad, so him and my mom was married. And then one day I heard them arguing, and I felt like that they were going to get a divorce. And I remember going to them crying and was like, y'all gonna get a divorce? And they was like, no, we're not, everything's gonna be fine. Well, needless to say, 2 weeks later we were moving into Dodge City Projects off of Clarksville Highway.
Wow.
And
so they did get a divorce.
Yes, they did get a divorce. And that's kind of when life took a turn for me, you know. We moved into projects, and around the time when crack cocaine was hitting the black community real hard, and you know, not understanding and not knowing, looking back, my mom was probably depressed, you know. She was probably looking for an out, and she ended up getting addicted to crack cocaine real bad. And you know, I just remember a lot of days not really having nothing to eat in the refrigerator, you know, going to school and acting out because it was hard to focus and listen to my teachers when I didn't know what I was going to eat when I got home. And you know, just trying to make ends meet and provide for my younger siblings.
How old were you at this point?
I was 11 years old.
11?
Yes, sir.
And how many brothers, sisters did you have?
I have an older sister and a younger brother.
All right. And
Yes,
so
sir.
you moved there, living with your mom. She probably is depressed.
Yeah.
And what happens?
I remember coming home from school and walking down the hallway, and when I got, I'm walking down the street, and when I got to where we lived at in the back of the projects, I noticed things from my room on the side of the road. And so as I got closer, I seen that it was all of our things have been set out. See, back in those days, they would just put your stuff out on the side of the road by the dumpster. And I seen a lot of people going through our stuff, and actually I was stunned, so I just sat there, you know, for a minute, and I started crying. You know, I remember just being like defeated and just disbelief. And I looked around, and there was no one there to pick me up. And I remember going toward my granny house, she stayed out north on the other side of 24th and Osage. And I cried the whole way, and I told myself that when I grow up, I would never be broke. I would never be broke. I would never be broke. I repeated that the whole way there to her house.
Wow.
Yep, and then that kind of started me on my own at that point.
You were on your own.
Yes.
And you've started a business. You've written this book. That story alone, I think, would resonate with youth. So you tell that story
all the time. Yes, sir.
All the time. And then I guess it gets worse even from there.
It gets worse
because you get into some bad stuff.
Yes,
and you get into prison. How did all that come about?
So I started when I walked to my grandmother's house. I started living with a cousin, and you know, she was the cool cousin. Everyone in their family has that family member that kind of let you do what you want to do, kind of make your own rules. And at that time, just seeing my stuff on the side of the road, I was a rebel at that point. Like, I didn't want to listen to no one. I started acting out and committing crimes, and my first crime was when I was 13. I committed a vandalism charge, and I went to juvenile, and it was downhill ever since from then on. And I started selling drugs, and you know, because I needed money, you know, to try to feed myself and take care of myself. So I started learning how to sell drugs, and then I got addicted to drugs at a young age. I was addicted to cocaine, and just out on the streets on my own, sleeping in cars, sleeping in crack houses, and that kind of continued for a while. And then I end up committing a crime and robbing. I committed a robbery on a task force that was coming to bust me, and I ended up getting away and going to Taft Youth Development Center for 2 years. Around that time, I ended up getting my GED and returned to the streets. Didn't learn my lesson. Continued on with the lifestyle. Fast forwarding it to about when I was 2007, I was heavy in the streets at this point, selling multiple kilos of cocaine, and I ended up getting set up and busted and by the FBI, and I ended up going to federal prison for 5 years.
Wow, federal prison for 5 years.
Yes, sir.
And I want to talk more about that and how that impacts how that story can help kids today. But then let's fast forward some more. How is it that you go on to start your own company? So with that background,
right,
that sounds terrible.
Yes,
I mean, that's terrible. And so how is it that you start your own company?
So while I was in prison, I knew when I got out, I had to have a plan of action, or I was going to go right back to the same people, places, and things that got me in federal prison. So ironically, while I was in prison, I spent most of my time devising a plan, educating myself, figuring out what I wanted to do, and I put together a business plan. And I knew I had to be an entrepreneur, because me being a felon, I wasn't going to be able to get out and go work and make a job. Work a job making a livable wage to take care of my family.
It would be hard for you to get hired, right?
Yes, people don't play about being a felon and trying to get out and get a job. And so, you could get a job, but it's working, and I did. When I got out, but it was working in some restaurant, washing dishes, bussing tables. But like I said, I had a wife and kids. I got to provide. And so I devised a plan to start a cleaning company when I got out, and it was Imperial Cleaning Systems. I also devised a plan to, when I get out, because I already knew I wanted to go back and help youth, and Impact Youth Outreach was born well before they were implemented. And once released, I went to the Federal Halfway House off of Lee Avenue. And the second day out, I landed a job at Maggiano's Little Italy on West End, and I bust my behind. I worked like nobody's business, and I truly believe in that. At that moment, God was building character in me, because I still had a little arrogance, because I had a lot of money, and so I was arrogant, and that was God's way of humbling me. He had to prepare me for what He was going to give me, which is what I have now in my company and being successful and all of that. But I worked, bust my butt for a year. I was Employee of the Month. And when I went to my evaluation, they gave me a 10-cent raise. I almost lost my mind in there.
Oh, man.
And after that, I put in my 2 weeks notice and started Imperial Cleaning Systems. And I just jumped out there on faith and started the company, and I worked my butt off, cleaning toilets on my knees, doing floors, doing jobs for less than industry average, just to get my name out there and build the company. And lo and behold, I'm here today.
Why is it your story is so unique? Why don't we hear more people that have that kind of success, that have been through the terrible stuff you've been through? What do you think it is that I guess people can learn from what it is that you did, so that more people can do it?
It's one of those things. It's I had a lot to play in it. I played a lot in this scenario, but I believe God, He ordained me, He blessed me to even be able to do this. And I get that question all the time, and there's no cookie cutter answer, because I've learned that individuals are different. Like, I have major drive. I have a reason to. Look where I come from. I'm one of the most successful people in my family's history. I have a lot on my shoulder. I have kids that I want to be an example for. So all of that pushes me to be great, pushes me to want more and to do more. And so some people's motivations are different, but if I had to give an answer, it would be mentorship. It would be being, people like me giving back, being that face, being that voice for kids and men that are hopeless once they get out of prison, it's important because you need to see success in order to reach for success.
Because I would think so many people that they spend the 5 years in prison, it's all they know. They get out, they get a terrible job where they work really hard and get a 10-cent raise,
Right.
and then they just turn back to what they were doing. That's why we have the recidivism, and I would think that's what I guess we have to really be thinking about. How do we prevent that from happening?
If people, so everyone has to play. I mean, employers like me, I launched Imperial Cares because I knew the importance of giving young men jobs when they get out. If you don't catch them in that first month, they're going back to what they're used to, what's going to be most profitable for them, along with not being able to find housing and no one there to help. Everyone wants you to get out and do right. It doesn't work like that. You got your probation officers working against you. Right now, I got people who can't even come to work on time because they have to go see their probation officers doing work hours. I call them and I try to, advocate on the behalf of my employee, and they just don't want to hear it. He needs to be here, and I don't care about nothing else. So when you got probation officers working against you, you got people don't want to hire you, you can't find housing. What do you expect a person to do? All right, I got to feed my family, I got to do what I got to do. And I don't think people understand the pitfalls and the corners that people that are released are backed into.
I guess the community doesn't people don't understand. People setting the rules don't understand. It sounds like what you're saying is the rules set people up to fail.
It does. Broken system.
And that's what we have to change. And so how do we go about changing that? I guess, talk about that.
So, I mean, it starts with Metro, starts with government. It starts with them really focus on what's going on. But this is the thing, I met with the governor's people about last month. They know what's going on. That's the hurtful part of this, is that everybody knows how to fix this issue. But when you got a for-profit system where bottom lines matter, why would you fix something that's going to hurt your bottom line? I'm a businessman. I look at my P&Ls every day. If something is affecting my bottom line, then I have to get rid of it, cut back, and make adjustments. And I just don't see them wanting to end what's going on. I mean, a lot of people make money on this. You got the halfway houses, you got the counselors, you have the for-profit systems. Everyone is benefiting off of this, and so I don't see a reason to fix it. Why would you fix it if
there's
it's going to affect your money?
Probably a lot of companies that want desperate people to work their tails off and then give them a 10-cent raise because they know there's no place else they can go.
I agree.
And that is fascinating. So it's almost built within the system.
Yes, sir.
People know what the problem is, but people don't want to fix it.
I wouldn't.
Well, that's depressing.
It really is. It kind of puts you in a position where it's almost hopeless. You're almost hopeless because, I look at people all the time. I mentor kids, and I mentor a lot of men who've just been recently released, and just to see the hopelessness in their face because they're trying, and they tell me, I'm trying, and I try to help them, but I can't make nobody hire these people. I can't make I can't build an apartment complex and allow felons to move in. I wish I could. The city could do a lot more, and then the governor just cut funding. I mean, the mayor just cut funding for
affordable housing.
Yeah,
affordable
and
housing.
So, we're screwed right now.
All right. It's fascinating to talk about all this. We're gonna take a break. Then I want to come back. I want to talk about the book,
right.
Which is Journey Back to Now, okay. and again, what we can learn from this. The overall topic is keeping our kids out of the juvenile justice system. Gotcha. You have certainly something to say there, and so we'll come back and talk about that.
Yes, sir.
So there's the number if you want to call in, 615-737+, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.